I mean, do you even know what that would look like, really? If you're like most of us, you've built your life in such a way that it looks like it's supposed to, like we hear that it's supposed to on the outside, right? Good relationship or good from the outside, stable home, career or business that makes people nod with respect. And if you're still feeling this sense that something about the love and the life that you're living was never actually designed for you, doesn't actually fit, you're in the right place for this conversation. That's exactly what we're going to talk about, because most of us build our life sleepwalking, as our guest is going to talk to us about. And that's not how we build the best life. And so if you're here because you want it all, stay tuned. This is going to be an amazing conversation that brings you into a paradigm shift that gives you permission to have it your way in life, and especially in how you relate in love. Welcome, my friends, to another Catalyst conversation for the relationship revolution. Here, we challenge the unquestioned assumptions about love, life, and leadership, disrupting the patterns that are keeping you stuck and revealing truths that no one has told you. Here, we activate new ways of leading relationships consciously, courageously, differently, and dare I say, better. We do that so that you can have the kind of life and love that most people only dream of. I am so glad that you are here. Are you ready? Let's get into it. So, if you're listening to this episode when it first drops, we are deep in the month of June 2026, which means we are deep into our Proud Love series. All month long, I've been in conversation with some of the most extraordinary voices at the intersection of queer identity, love, and liberation. And because June is Pride Month, and I am a proud member of this community, want to uplift these voices, we don't just celebrate with rainbows and visibility. We celebrate by honoring the lived experiences of folks in our community and going deep into what those experiences can give to all of us, regardless of our identity locations. So today, like many of the other episodes, we are going into what it actually means to love out loud, right? Like when you're told that who you are or how you want to love isn't okay. We're exploring more of what it means to choose your relationship consciously when most of us have been handed a script that we never got to read first. Today's guest, the amazing Ali Hendry, is going to give us something that I think many of us have been waiting secretly to receive, and that's permission. Permission to question, permission to research, permission to write the relationship that is actually yours. It's going to be good. But before I go in any deeper, let me take a moment to introduce myself for those of you who may be new to me and to this work. My name is Dr. JENI Wallig. I'm an award-winning relationship mentor, speaker, author, intuitive guide, and relationship revolutionary. My mission is to revolutionize how we think about and go about our relationships and to redefine what it means to love so that we may all experience the power and possibilities that our relationships have to offer. Nothing, truly nothing, impacts the quality of our lives more than the quality of our relationships. And we are in relationship all the time, including relationship with ourselves. Relationships are the foundation of everything else that we are building our lives upon. But most of us have never learned how to do relationships well, let alone how to lead them consciously, especially when they get hard. In fact, a lot of what we learned not only doesn't work, it also is part of what's keeping us stuck and unhappy. So this revolution that I'm bringing into the world, that is my divine assignment, is about creating this great global healing through love. It's a return from separation into wholeness. It is a paradigm shift in the ways that humanity relates, loves, and leads, starting at our most intimate levels. in these catalyst conversations, my goal isn't just to teach you something or inspire you. It is to wake something up within you so that you may be part of this revolution too. Now, my guest today came out at 28 after years of living inside a script that didn't fit. She's been married, divorced, married again, and has continued to evolve her own love style with curiosity and courage rather than shame. She is an ICF Master Certified Coach specializing in relationships and diversity, the founder of her own coach training school, a TEDx speaker whose talk on jealousy has inspired thousands, and a regular columnist for Diva Magazine, the largest global LGBTQ+ women and non-binary publication. She is here today to help us all understand what it means to stop inheriting a relationship and start designing one. Ali, welcome to Catalyst Conversations for a Relationship Revolution. I am so honored and excited to have you here.
Wow, what an intro. Thank you so much, Dr. JENI. That's absolutely amazing. I'm very, very excited to be here, and I feel very much at home because this is the Relationship Revolutionary. And of course, we are talking about how we are revolutionizing our relationships. So loving it.
Yes, that's exactly right. And so, like, as we think about revolutionizing our relationship, I want to start with a clarifying question. You talk about love style, and I fucking love that word, by the way. But I imagine that for those who may have never heard the word before, they might be wondering, like, what exactly does that mean? What is a love style? And what are you talking about when you say that we can design one?
Thank you for a great start off as a question. And love style is how you love. I mean, there are so many different ways to love. The way that I'm using it is in terms of relationship structures, designs, if you will. And we have got monogamous relationships and we have got non-monogamous relationships.
Yeah.
And there are different types of non-monogamous relationships. And I, in the last few years, have been really curious to explore relationships that are in the non-monogamous wheelhouse, as it were. So monogamy, as we all know, one person, we are told this script that you will meet this person, you'll fall in love, you will be together forever and never be lonely again. And I've certainly gone into that, as you said. I have been in that situation, 2 marriages, 2 divorces, 2 wonderful, wonderful humans, one man, one woman, and absolutely loved and enjoyed those relationships. And I realized, and this is from talking to my mother, actually, who has also had 2 marriages and 2 divorces, it's not a failure. It's that was complete. That relationship was complete. And so learning from her and learning about the way that she lives her life, and also my father and how he has lived his life or is living his life. He's 87. He met somebody last year, at the end of last year, and at his Tai Chi class, weekly Tai Chi class.
Fantastic.
And she's in her late 70s, he's in his late 80s, and they fell in love. They're very much in love. And he'd been single for years and years and years. So I'm always interested, and I'm like, yay, I've got it in my family too. I'm always interested in different ways of relationshiping. And when I was a coach, or when I was first training to be a coach, and realizing that actually relationships and inclusion are the 2 topics that I want to work with, I realized that actually a lot of the training around relationships is very monogamous, in mononormativity, as in monogamy is the norm, mononormativity. And I wanted to create courses that said, and years ago, I'm doing a little improvisation class once a week, which I'm loving. I've done improv for years. I've ran classes and courses on improvisation. It's interesting how coaching and improvisation have got similarities. And we use this phrase, yes, and that's great as a coach. Yeah, I accept that that's the situation. And what else? So having that curiosity. So when we talk about non-monogamy, we are talking about different types of non-monogamy. A lot of people will have heard the word polyamory, which quite often people think is an umbrella term. Now, there are different types of polyamory, but actually when we're talking about polyamory, we're talking about having more than one, or the capacity for, you don't actually have to be in more than one relationship. You know, you don't have to be, you don't have to prove your sexual orientation, for example, by being in a relationship with somebody of that gender. So it's the same with your non-monogamy. You can be single and non-monogamous. And so polyamory is the one that a lot of people have heard about in terms of being in love with more than one person at the same time, with full knowledge and consent of all involved. There is the swinging community, where it's more about having some people don't call themselves non-monogamous, actually, interestingly, in the swinging community. And that's where you go to an event or someone's house for the sole purpose of having sex with other people or another person. And you've got relationship agreements and actually sometimes relationship rules that can help really well in that setting in terms of who's allowed to sleep with whom, etc. at these events. You've got open relationships, which can show up in many different ways. You might have a relationship where if you both travel for work, it's okay if you accidentally fall on someone's face and end up stogging them. That might be okay and not called cheating. So you get to decide, and I think that's where all of this comes from. You get to decide what your relationship agreements are, and also they're not fixed. We have to keep checking in with each other in any kind of relationship, whether you're monogamous or non-monogamous. So what I'm talking about is that freedom to say, I love that you use sleepwalking in the introduction. I certainly sleptwalked my way through 2 wonderful, beautiful monogamous relationships or marriages, and then a few more significant relationships as well that were monogamous, without even considering. And actually, my first marriage, I had an affair with a woman, which is where it all fell apart. My husband was a little bit older than me, and he said, and I was as you said, I was in my 20s. He said, what if we can carry on and you can also have? So back then, this is 30 years ago.
Sure.
I didn't have the language or the knowledge or the will to want to move into non-monogamy at all. But it's interesting how that was floated, if you like, as an idea. And actually, when I was 16, when I was on holiday, I had 2 boyfriends and they both knew about each other and they were both fine with it. And that seemed okay for me and for everyone involved. And again, we didn't call it non-monogamy in the 80s. Or maybe we did, I don't know. It's certainly come into the fore. I know you talk about that as well.
Yep. Yeah. I love this conversation because I think that for a lot of people, especially those who maybe are with a partner who doesn't fill a bucket that feels important to them, right? Whether that has to do with sex or spiritual connection or some other compatibility. And in the monogamy paradigm, that you're just stuck, right? You just have to compromise, or you have to leave and find somebody else. But then you're signing up for another, imperfect relationship, because it's rare that we find someone who fills every single bucket perfectly. I mean, I believe that Calvin is my soulmate, and yet there's certainly dynamics between us that that aren't as I would prefer, that I would love to be able to share with another person. And I think that we so rarely give ourselves permission to even consider our love style, like choosing a love style, because it doesn't have to be non-monogamy or polyamory the way most people think about it. I mean, we can share love in even non-sexual ways with people. But there's so many possibilities, right? In how we do relationship, how we find joy, how we experience connection, that if if we, well, let me say it this way. We can't get to until we move away from our sleepwalking, just following scripts, and start giving ourselves permission to get curious about what else is possible and what do we actually want.
Yeah. We have more than one friend, a lot of us. And
Right.
the reason that we have more than one friend is that we have friends for different reasons and different seasons.
Mhm.
And that's the same. And you love your friends in different ways.
Yeah.
That's the same with romantic and sexual relationships, could be the same. You know, one of the things that a lot of people talk to me about when they come to me for individual coaching, or they might be duos. I tend to use the word duos rather than couples because I work with different relationship iterations and we are very couple centric. And so it's great to recognize that not everybody is in that kind of traditional couple.
Mhm.
When I'm working with individuals, there's the conversation of jealousy comes up a lot.
Yeah.
I couldn't do that. I'm too jealous. And
Right.
actually, I have, as you said, I've got a whole ass TED talk that's called Survivor's Guide to Jealousy. And that was based on my experience of experiencing a lot of jealousy in monogamous relationships, going into non-monogamy and being able to handle it so much better, which doesn't make sense when you've got more partners involved.
Right.
Actually, what happened is I joined a community that said, right, let's roll up our sleeves, let's get on with this, and let's work out how we can, you know, make it easier with this thing called jealousy. So jealousy is seen as an entity outside of you rather than an identity. It's not like I'm a jealous person. It's there is jealousy. Let's look at what you can do, what I can do, what we can do as a unit in a relationship together.
I love
And
that.
so I learned ways of being in a situation where the jealousy was still going to be there, but it wasn't shameful. It was something that we needed to have a look at, which really worked for me. And also, if you listen to Survivor's Guide to Jealousy, you'll see there are some other things that I picked up along the way that I thought, oh, yeah, gosh, yes, I was it so? I was always meant to be experience jealousy in this way because of some of the things that happened in childhood. And now I'm realizing that doesn't have to define me and my relationships in the future. So I love that. You know, you said about a lot having a conversation. A lot of people had conversations about non-monogamy in lockdown. I was very busy because people were saying, I'm trapped, I'm stuck. What do we do? And actually, maybe now is the conversation that we should have had, you know, maybe, I don't know, 5 years ago, because neither of us are happy and neither of us want to leave this relationship. And what do we do? What's next? How do we navigate this? And there's children and there's society saying this is wrong. And there's no legal recognition if we do meet somebody else and fall in love independently or together. You know, there's so many things that could be against us. So and different types of relationships, like you said. I wrote an article a few years ago. I've been writing for Diva magazine for more than 5 years, which has been amazing, having my column in Diva magazine. And I wrote about queer platonic relationships. I think it was last year or the year before. There are so many different ways that we can have deep connected relationships with friendships that can feel romantic. You text each other every day, you send each other flowers, you tell each other you love each other, and are not sexual. Nothing is getting inserted into anything or kissed or touched in a way that makes it sexual, you know.
Right. Yeah. You know, and I think in a lot of monogamous relationships, when there can be some jealousy or even some sense of betrayal, when there is like emotional intimacy shared between two people. So like how do you support folks in shifting that paradigm within themselves or their relationship if they recognize that they want to have this closeness with a friend, but their partner, for example, sees that as cheating, like an emotional affair?
First of all, we need to be defining what is cheating, and this is something that will be helpful for your relationship and the agreements that you come together on, because for some people, cheating might be text messaging somebody, liking something on Instagram, liking a photograph or something, and for others, cheating might be having penetrative sex, and actually you're allowed to kiss and I don't need to know about it, and that's not cheating. So there are so many different types of what cheating is, and
it's
you
not
get
a
to
black and
decide
white
that.
definition.
Absolutely not. No.
Mhm.
And you decide as a team what it is and what it isn't.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to the jealousy, calling it the jealousy instead of my jealousy or your jealousy, taking it out of it being an identity that you're wedded to, and
Mhm.
making it a third entity that you can have a conversation about. What a lot of researchers talk about, and also educators who are in the non-monogamy field, they talk about jealousy being an unmet need,
Aha.
which I think is a great approach.
Yeah.
What am I not getting that I
Yep.
need? And it may not be from that other person. It may not be to do with what they're not giving you. It actually could be an unmet need. You could be hungry, you could be thirsty, you could be tired. You could
Mm.
have just had an argument with somebody. And
Mhm.
if we can work out ways of resourcing ourselves with our own needs and having agency for our own needs, that is also going to support jealousy, as well as collaborating on ways that you can do things differently.
Oh my gosh. That's so good, Ali. Yes. Like, and thank you for sharing that. This, the shift to understanding jealousy as an unmet need makes it so tangible, right? So because then we can, and especially as we're seeing it not as like something that's just in me, but like something that exists, that just is, that we could talk about outside of ourselves. The jealousy is an unmet need, and we can start looking at it.
Yeah.
And then I also really want to highlight the way you're talking about resourcing ourselves, because that too is a paradigm shift that I'm all about in this revolution, is taking responsibility for our own needs, our own joy, our own uh, cups being filled, as opposed to needing one partner to be all of that. Because a lot of the time they can't be, because they don't have what it is that is really unmet within us, or they have their own needs and they're not resourced enough to give, or what we're asking for is challenging for them in some
Yeah.
way,
Yeah.
right? And so this is a, you know, as I think about the title of this conversation, having it our way, the like part of that is recognizing what it is that I need or desire to experience, and then taking ownership for like resourcing that for ourselves. And part of that may be having conversations with our partner, or being clear on what it is that we desire and co-creating that together. And part of that may be also figuring out other ways to get those needs met.
Yes. Yeah. When you're with a partner, and perhaps you are a nesting partner, as in you're living with that person and sharing a lot of responsibilities, your partner might go on a date with somebody else and it's all consensual, etc.
Sure.
And this might be the first time they've gone on a date. You haven't met this person. You don't have to, but if you've got a certain type of polyamory, it might be that you are going to end up meeting this person, or it may be that you're not. That's absolutely what you decide together.
Yeah.
And this could apply to your friendship analogy as well. So your partner is going out with their friend who you've never really trusted, or is going out after work with some new friends who you haven't met. You know, it's usually when there's an unknown,
Yes.
and you're thinking, oh, I'm starting to feel that thing in my chest or my neck, or wherever it is that you experience jealousy. And by the way, that's a really good starting point. Where does jealousy show up in my body? Because all it is a physiological change that your brain decides to label jealousy. It could be something else, could be envy, could be fear, could be upset.
Yep.
Could be all sorts of things. So
usually I
when
think
we know,
like an amalgamation of different
yeah,
feelings. Yeah.
when we know that event is going to happen, we can think about, how do I put together a care package? How do I resource myself? How do I make sure that my friend is on speed dial? How do I make sure that I've got the next episode of series that I've been watching lined up to watch, or I go to the cinema with a friend, or I go to the gym, whatever it is. I had one partner who she always wanted to be at the gym when I was going on a date with another woman, because that's how she realized she needed to be doing something physical. She needed to be energetic, feeling good about herself, etc. So we planned that between us. You know, we made sure that all of us were okay to meet at certain times when she knew she could go to the gym and lift heavy weights.
I love that.
So resourcing yourself, knowing what it is that you need in
Yeah.
that situation, so that you have that your own agency.
Yeah.
And by the way, when we talk about jealousy, there are some countries that don't experience jealousy. Oh, hang on a minute. So does that mean that we could be conditioned to feel jealousy? Could that mean that all the films that say, well, if they're jealous, that means they really care about you? Really?
Whoa.
Really though? Really though?
Say what
Yeah.
now?
I know.
Yes. Yes, it is possible to not feel jealous. And you're absolutely right. I think that there is some like cultural script that says that we're supposed to feel jealous.
Yeah.
That if we didn't feel jealous, if we didn't struggle, that we didn't care. We don't care.
It comes up a lot when I'm working with duos. You know, quite often there will be one person, they'll go, well, I've never felt jealousy and I know I'm a bit weird. And it's such a shame that we make it weird when actually it's just like, yeah, great. You don't feel jealousy. Okay. And, you know, how are we going to work with the partner that does feel jealousy? And how are we going to get to that space of understanding where we're seeing each other's lens and then able to accommodate that in a way that we are still able to be ourselves? We're not saying that anybody is in charge of this. We're partnering with this, which is what we do in coaching. You're partnering with your client to find a way forward so that they can help themselves. And it's the same in any kind of partnership. How can that person be in relationship with you and also be autonomous? You know, that's differentiation, isn't it? That term that people talk about, being connected and separate. That's what a lot of us like to have in our any kind of relationships.
Yeah, you know, and there's so many like gold nuggets that you're bringing into the conversation, Ali, and I'm gonna pull on a couple threads that hopefully I don't forget them. So one of them is the idea that we are like in this process, we are making the unconscious conscious. We're like actually thinking about and choosing what it is that we like, how it is that we want to do our love style, how it is that we want to do relationship, what our agreements are in relationship. Because even in monogamy, right? Because as we're talking about the idea that one person might find this type of friendship to be cheating, right? Even in monogamy, have you actually talked about what cheating is? Have you actually come to agreements about how we, you know, respond to text messages when we're hanging out with friends, or what kinds of other relationships or depths or conversations are okay and not okay? And most people are sleepwalking through that in an assumption that the script that we've internalized from our parents or from movies or just from the dominant discourse of our culture is the way that it should be. And we assume that our partner knows those rules and those scripts and is going to follow them. And then when they don't, we feel hurt or betrayed or we're in conflict. And it is bringing into awareness how important those agreements are. And I want to highlight too that like an agreement is different from a rule. An agreement is like you're partnering together and you're both have a say and you're coming to a shared agreement about how this is going to go. And then you can change it. You can course correct if need be in the future. Whereas a rule is one person saying, this is not okay. You can't do that. And so, I mean, that's a whole other conversation, but I want to be really clear that how you think things should be may not be what your partner agrees to. And that's the other thing I really wanted to pull is the importance of partnering around how we do this. Whether you're working with your coach or therapist or support person and partnering with them and getting conscious and having permission to choose your love style and what this looks like, or you're partnering with your partner or partners around like, how do we make this work? What would feel good for you? How do we solve this together so that everybody to the best of our ability can get our needs met, while taking ownership of our own needs and like what would feel good for me? Because we can't just expect our partner to make us feel good without knowing what our needs are. There's like so many layers to this. We could go so deep, But it like, I love that you're bringing into consciousness the kinds of things that are worth considering in our relationship journeys, in making decisions about how we want these relationships, our love life, our partnerships, our families to actually look.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. I think as a lesbian, there is this is even more an assumption that you are able to read your partner or partners, and you're going to know because you're both women. So why
Mhm.
wouldn't you? Or you might be non-binary, you might be trans woman, lesbian,
Sure.
whatever your gender is. And it's simply not true. It's
Yes.
not true.
Yes.
And so we need to get away from that, because we're only going to get disappointed when the person isn't a mind reader.
Thank you. Yes. I don't care how similar you are with your partner in any of the identity intersections, whether you're both trans or you're both Black or you're both women or you both came from the same town and school where you grew up. Like, and it's really quite fascinating the way that people's nervous systems and brains make sense of the world, the decisions and conclusions that they reach, the rules and scripts that they follow, regardless of overlap and similarities of identities and experience. So I love this.
We love a pattern. We love a pattern. We love to make sense of the world. That's what our brains do.
Mm-hmm.
It's sometimes, when it comes to ADHD, autism, neurodivergence,
Yeah.
there is even more of a wish, and not true for everybody, but sometimes we are looking even more for patterns and scripts and colors, and that is great. And I love that. And also there are other things going on. So being able to say, again, we go back to yes and what else?
Yeah.
I love how you talk about the definitions as well, because I find that super useful for people to understand. And I always use an analogy when I'm talking about differences between boundaries and agreements and rules.
Yeah.
And I talk about it in terms of, say, for example, you and a partner are going to a party and the topic of flirting comes up, which for some people might be cheating, for some people might not be cheating, for some people it's really hot and it turns them on and they're going to have great sex later when they've been flirting with other people, whatever it is that works for you.
Right.
And so a rule would be you're not allowed to flirt. So you're imposing your view or your will on somebody else. You're not allowed to flirt. An agreement might be, if you're flirting, I might start to feel a little bit insecure. And so I'll want to come over to you and just squeeze your hand. If that's not available, then I will have to, let's have a conversation about how that might work. So you're working on partnering with what might happen and how might you react and how might you work on that. Would it be okay? Yes, absolutely. I'll give you a little, or if I'm going to be flirting with someone or chatting with someone, I'll always come and find you afterwards. A boundary is more about what you are going to do in that situation. So again, boundaries are statements of needs. We go back to the needs idea as well. So being able to say, hey, I might feel a little bit insecure if there's some flirting going on. I want to come over and squeeze your hand. If that's not available, that's okay. I will have to go and sit in the car for a bit. So you're not punishing them. You're not telling them what to do. You're not necessarily collaborating. You're saying, hey, this is what's happening. This is the need. If that can't be fulfilled, that's okay. I get it. This is what I'll be doing to support myself.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm so glad that you brought that up, Ali, because a lot of people get confused about what exactly a boundary is. And they set boundaries that are actually rules. And boundaries, I think that's so important. Boundaries are about ourselves, about how far we're going to go and what we are going to do in certain circumstances to take care of
ourselves. It's like a field. You're standing in your field. Your fence around you is your boundary. You get to decide what are your yeses, your nos, and your maybes. You get to decide who's coming into your field. And yes, you are assessing whether they're safe or not, and you are finding out and getting curious on whether things are okay or not, and then they get to come, they're in their field, they're standing in their field with their boundary around them, their fence around them. They are set and maintained by you. I think that's the thing to hold on to with the boundaries. If it's you're telling them what to do, then we're creeping into rules. Rules aren't all bad. We don't boo hiss rules. And in fact, like I said earlier, when it comes to some communities, non-monogamous communities, for example, the swinging world do rules really, really well, and they work really well in that dynamic with within that environment. So they use what you want, babes. I mean, we're not telling you what to do, we're just giving you ideas.
And inviting you to be conscious of them, right? Conscious and clear about what they, rather than being on autopilot, which is like a huge part of what I talk to folks about in the work that I do in relationships. It's like we're making the unconscious conscious all the time, whether that's our nervous system reaction or our needs and desires or our boundaries and rules and belief systems. We're bringing that into consciousness so that we can choose how we're moving in this relationship and consciously create what it is that we desire to be experiencing. We can't do that if we're just sleepwalking through the relationship, or if we're just playing out a script of shoulds without giving ourselves permission to move into what actually feels aligned for who we desire to be. And this goes beyond just love style in terms of relationship structure. It's also about who we desire to be in our career or our business, or what it means to us to be a parent, or to be a woman, a man, a non-binary person. There's all kinds of scripts that most of us aren't aware are playing out in our lives. And there's so much liberation that we can find when we start becoming conscious of those.
We don't buy a car, stick it on the driveway and go, there we are, that's done. We invest in it. We make sure it's running. We take it out for a little run to make sure it's still going. We get the MOTs, I don't know, do they call them MOTs in America?
No.
That's the way you're checking that everything works, and they go into the garage and making sure once a year you have to get your, I haven't owned a car for many years because I don't need to where I live. We just walk everywhere or catch the bus. Everything's near everywhere. I'm in Brighton in the UK on the south coast, near the sea, seaside town or city. Absolutely love it. So we don't do that with a car. We don't plonk it there and go, well, we've done everything we need to do. We've got invested in it and it's going. So why do we do that with relationships? Why do we expect it to just run without any kind of investment or having monthly check-ins? We do it with our, like you said, with business, with your careers. You're constantly thinking about, is this the right choice? We live in a portfolio world. A lot of people have multiple income streams or multiple jobs. They're not tied to the retirement plan. They're not going into a job at 16 and staying there until retirement age because they want to have the payout, because they want to have the pension. A lot of people aren't living like that anymore. And I think that's great that we can look at things in a different way. Obviously, for some people, that does mean more financial instability. But we've also got, because we're all working in different jobs, we've also got multi-generational opportunities that we haven't always had. You've got 16-year-olds working next to 80-year-olds in the same career, in the same business, in coaching. There's all the ages working together and collaborating. So there's so much richness in there to learn from each other and to enjoy different ways of being. My dad, as I said, is in his 80s. They don't want to live together. They've both been living separately for years and years. That doesn't mean their relationship is any less valid because they don't want to do all the things that say, well, this is a proper relationship. We call it the relationship escalator, where you're supposed to follow a script. Again, talking about scripts: meeting, falling in love, having sex, only being with that person. They're always your plus one, blending all of the finances, only ever going on holiday with them. All of those things great if that works for you. And also there are other things available to you. My godfather, he died of a stroke in his 80s a couple of summers ago. And I spent time with him and his girlfriend. They'd been together for 27 years and they had never lived together. And so many people didn't see that as a serious relationship.
Yeah.
He was in hospital up the road from me. I went there 3 or 4 times a week, spent a lot of time with him. He was nonverbal because of the stroke, and his girlfriend was there. I have never had I'm getting tingles thinking about it, the experience of witnessing that amount of love.
Wow.
And they weren't married, and they didn't live together, and they went on holiday together and with friends.
Yep.
Are we saying that that's any less of a relationship? No, we're not. We're saying it's a different relationship that worked for them.
Yeah, I actually have a family who has a very similar story. Didn't live together. I mean, they're living together now, but they've been together almost 30 years, and probably for the first 20 didn't even live in the same city. Yeah. But it's a very serious relationship.
I love the idea of people who say we're monogamous and we've got separate bedrooms. I'm like, yes, I love that, because why do we, especially if you've shared as a child, shared a bedroom with a sibling, why do we go back to that? Why? Because it can be so, I mean, obviously I am talking from a privileged position, and I'm talking about the finances of it. And, you know, that is my lens as a white middle-class person growing up in the south of England. So I completely acknowledge that that's what's driving this conversation right now. Right. It's not going to be available to everybody. If it is available to you, why not try it? It could be quite exciting. It could add that added spice. And yet we're kind of thinking, oh, well, if you're not sharing a bed, there's something wrong.
Right.
Well, I'm actually inviting them into my room tonight and I've got some things planned. How is that not exciting?
Yeah.
Or they saw. Great. Fantastic. I need to get sleep. I've got an early start.
I love that. I love that. So hard. You know, there's so many possibilities for how our relationships can look, for how our home can look, for how our love can look. And I don't know that we have the privilege without conversations like this to have recognizing that there is permission for that it can be that way. And which is why I'm so glad that we are having this conversation, because I want all of our listeners to know it can look a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
There's one other thing I want to make sure that we touch on, a question I have, or a topic that feels important for me, because I know as someone who identifies as polyamorous, and you said something so lovely and so affirming in the beginning, which I really appreciate, which was that, like, you don't have to prove your identity. You could be polyamorous, or you could be non-monogamous and be single, or be non-monogamous and not be dating anybody but one person. And that's, you know, Calvin and I are both identify as polyamorous, but we're not actively dating with anyone, and that doesn't, or dating anyone else, or looking to date anyone else. And that doesn't change our identity, who we are. And what I often share with people is, like, right now, Cal and I are choosing conscious monogamy as our way of relating, though our identities remain polyamorous, and we can choose something else. So what I wanted to bring into our conversation, because I imagine there are a number of listeners who don't identify as non-monogamous, but, like, there is something really important about choosing monogamy and not making that a sleepwalking decision either. So can you talk a little bit about what conscious monogamy is and what that means for those who are like, oh, I still don't think I could ever open up or be non-monogamous?
Yeah, very much so. First of all, I love that how you phrase that. And I love that actually what we're saying here is you have a conversation available to you within your relationship dynamic to talk about what if I start seeing someone else, what if one of us goes to a sex club, or whatever it is in terms of how how the the non-monogamy element shows up in your relationship.
Mhm.
Absolutely love that. And we can think about that in other ways. If you are monogamous, what would it be like if you could have a conversation about something like that? What if you want to take up a new project? What if you want to suddenly start to study for something that's going to take you away every evening? Being able to have those kinds of conversations in a collaborative way, where your partner isn't, or partners aren't just going to, well, we're talking about monogamy, where your partner isn't going to say, absolutely not, who's going to look after the children if you're off studying every night?
Right.
So having that available, I think, is a really beautiful element of any relationship, to be able to have a conversation about some changes that are coming in. Conscious monogamy and conscious relationships, it's a phrase, sort of fairly new phrase in the last few years, that has come up. And I think, again, it's as a result of people being stuck together in lockdown and thinking about and what else. And I think it's a really valuable standpoint. I think that when we look at how people view non-monogamy, and also so as a relationship coach, and also as someone who spent 20 years working in diversity, equity and inclusion, traveling up and down the country, delivering leadership training, which is why I also have an ICF relationship coach diploma and an ICF inclusive coaching diploma. I've got those two diplomas going because I'm passionate about each. If we're talking about inclusion, we bring up topics like gender, you mentioned earlier, in terms of relationships and how that plays out, how different genders view non-monogamy, how for some genders it might be seen as great permission to play around and say that I'm being really kind and considerate and I'm non-monogamous, when actually deep down that person really knows they are not non-monogamous. They are looking for a life partner, and this is their playing around thing. And that always comes out in coaching, those kind of, what is, like you mentioned earlier, what are the beliefs, what are the values that are underpinning me saying I'm non-monogamous, feeling that this is my relationship love style that I've moved into, and being able to ask the difficult questions. Really? Is it really though? Or are you just using it for this? And if you are, that is okay. I know I sort of did it in a disparaging voice back there. That is still okay, as long as you are sharing that with people, because you may well end up dating people who really are non-monogamous. And actually, for me, who have been non-monogamous for several years, I pause if somebody is brand new to non-monogamy, because I'm an educator and it's too easy for me to get into education mode, and they might like it and I might like it. It might be a kink. We might play a game around it and do some role play. But actually, that's not partnership to me. That's me knowing more than you do about a topic and feeling as if that's coming into the relationship. And I don't really want that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I would never date somebody who's never done non-monogamy.
Right.
What I am saying is look at the things, look at all the things with a view of balance. You might be choosing conscious monogamy. I love that. And also, what does that actually mean to you? Because it's going to be different for different people.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, my mind circles back to the idea of making the unconscious conscious. You're choosing it. You're getting clearer as much as we can around what it means. And I've worked with a lot of folks who are couples who are kind of new and opening up their relationship, right? And there's often this desire to want to anticipate all of the potentials and create the rules and the agreements now before they happen. And often that's not how it works. So, like as you're giving yourself permission to find your love style, to move into consciousness, know that part of that journey is course correcting, is adapting, is allowing for change, and trusting that in partnership, right? This is where that building that partnership, building the skills in how we relate to one another through challenges, how we relate to one another around differences, how we relate to one another when it comes to something changing in our lives. That foundation is what makes it possible to keep responding to the unfolding of our journeys.
Yeah. We as coaches work in the present and the future. I mean, that's one of the main differences between therapy and
Yeah.
coaching. Therapists are absolutely great at looking at the past, diving in there, having a route around, seeing what's going on, seeing how it's influencing the present. What we do as coaches is we're looking at what's going on in the present and what are we doing in the future? Where are we going with this? What do we want to change? What do we want to do differently? And we are, humans are constantly reinventing ourselves. So although having a category or a label or a tick box is really valuable and really useful in terms of monitoring things, looking at discrimination, having a quick win in terms of this is my identity, so you understand elements of me. I love that we have so many words. I know a lot of people are anti, but I love all the different words we have for sexual orientations, love styles, etc. I love that we have that because it is a quick win in terms of this is who I am, and also recognizing that things change all the time. And my point of saying about coaching is I have very much adopted that in terms of what do I want now? Because yes, there are, so for example, being in relationships where I felt non-monogamous relationships where I felt that I was the one that was helping them get out of their marriage. And that didn't feel great at the time. I mean, it was great and not great. And thinking that could be a pattern, that could be something that I take into the future. I'm looking at how that's showing up for me. I'm looking at the signs that I might want to be mitigating for in future relationships. Or that's what I did. And this happened a fair few years ago. So yes, of course, caretake, recognize, know, and therapy is great for that and doing that healing of the past. And also, what do I know now? What am I using? What's the data that I've got available to me right now to take forwards, rather than being a predictor? Because as we said before, we can't predict the future. We can't work out what's going on for ourselves, let alone for others, in terms of knowing what they're, the mind reading side of things.
Yeah. And, speaking of not being able to predict, you coach on ageism and you work with people coming out later in life, as I understand. Yeah. And so I imagine for folks who are coming out or discovering that their relationship love style is not fitting for them, but they're in their middle of life chapters. What do you want folks who may be there listening, who are starting to question the pattern that they've been following for decades? What do you want them to know about what's available to them?
Be kind to you, because the script that you thought was written for you is now completely different, and that's incredibly scary. You will have likely different responsibilities in your life as well. So there is so much more in terms of having conversations about the logistics and perhaps co-parenting and being in a relationship in a co-parenting way with somebody after the divorce or the separation, and also exploring a new part of you that might have always been there. There's always been signs, you hadn't really recognized them, or not. Sometimes there are no signs. It is for some people, it is just literally, and now I want to, and this is feeling really good and really exciting. A lot of people will feel very teenagery, which is great. There are total elements to that, because you are kissing somebody of a different gender for the first time, and that's really scary. So you're suddenly taken back to all of that teenage angsty stuff, and you're a kind of 50-year-old or 45-year-old or 40-year-old, and so you can feel a bit daft and a bit silly. So make sure that you are around people who are happy with that. We all need community. We all need to feel belonging, and belonging is about being accepted for who you are, instead of you trying to fit in, it's being you, and you naturally fit in. So finding those communities on social media, finding those experts who are informed with people who are going through those changes and those experiences and aren't going to be there. I sometimes, you might find this with people who've had therapy or coaching with people who are not in the non-monogamy world, and you're coaching them for non-monogamy topics, and they kind of go, I felt like I was under the microscope. I felt like they were asking me questions and they were learning about me. And that's not okay. That professional needs to go and do their own work rather than using your client as the way. Of course, we're always learning about different ways of humaning through our clients. When it comes to saying, sorry, what's polyamory again? That's not okay in that environment, because that person doesn't need you to be that at that point. You know, they need to just be there and to understand.
Yeah.
So can't remember what the question was. Oh yeah, aging. Brilliant. Had a senior moment. Life art. That's me coming in there. Aging. I love that I'm seen as a lesbian elder now, as a 57-year-old. I love it. It's certainly helped me approach aging in a different way. I might be sharing a story about 1990s queer London and some of the clubs I went to, and the clubs, the events, the women, all of the things that were happening. And it's a legacy conversation now. I love it. It's fascinating. We've got a Older Queer Voices podcast in the UK. We had the first Older Queer Voices festival, which was amazing. Caught up with loads of people I hadn't seen for years. In fact, some of them back in the 1990s in London, who are out there living their best queer world. So aging is a really, I am fascinated. I know we haven't got time to go into that, but it's a fascinating topic. It really is.
I love it. Thank you for sharing that. So I always like to ask, as we start to wrap up these conversations, for folks who are listening and they start taking steps to give themselves permission to start asking questions about themselves, to start giving or allowing themselves to actually live and love in a way that feels aligned. What becomes possible? Like, why go through the scary journey of stepping outside of the script and adventuring into a love style or an identity that feels more aligned with ourselves?
Was that a question?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, the question is like, what awaits for
I
them?
love what you said. I'm mesmerized by it.
What awaits for folks when they do this, when they start living with this permission?
Okay. I love that we are constantly evolving and learning. We talked about from everyone. I don't know why there is ageism in terms of, well, they're not as experienced as me. They have the experience of that person at that age, and you have the experience of you at that age. So stop it. Just stop it. Stop talking about it in that way. Stop grading experience. I think one of the things as a coach I'd be saying is what conversations are available to you right now. And that could be conversations with a partner, that could be conversations with yourself, that could be conversations with a trusted friend or a practitioner. That's the start. What conversations right now are available to me about this new way of relationshiping, or anything? Like we said earlier, it could relate to businesses. It could relate to how you are making some changes in your life and thinking about allyship and moving into how can I be more aware of individual differences? How can I be less afraid of difference? It could be any kind of topic. What conversation is available to me right now, and who is the person? And it could be yourself. Who am I going to speak to?
Yeah, I love that. I love that question, and it holds the power to open so many doors. And I think on speaking personally, on the other side of this, though my journey has been challenging in many ways, painful in others, it's also been incredibly liberating. And I don't know that I would have found the happiness or the like inspired creative life force energy that I am privileged to have if I hadn't stepped outside all of the shoulds and started like asking those questions, asking that like what are the conversations available to me? What do I need to be asking myself? What do I need to be considering? What is this thing that's not sitting right within me, and what would it mean to course correct that? And a lot of the times that means looking into a truth mirror, which can be really scary and worth it.
Yeah. And on the other side of all of that is you are okay, let me talk about me. It's not all about me, but just to share something. On the other side of non-monogamy, when you're first going into it, and where I'm at now, is I have so many deep and meaningful conversations. I mean, sometimes you're just kind of like, can we not just? And they are always available. And they are always at the forefront of entering new relationships or being in current relationships, having those meaningful, deep conversations, checking in with, is this okay? Is this what I want? Is this what you want? Is this what we want? That has never happened in the monogamy world, because didn't really need to. It was just kind of doing the script of what everybody else was doing. So being able to have those kind of conversations, and for them to be normalized, we are going to have that conversation again, because we need to keep checking in and seeing where things are at. And actually there's some new exciting things that we might want to try. That is something I don't think I could have experienced if I was monogamous. And the other one is sexual diversity. And some people go into non-monogamy not for sex reasons. So I'm not saying it's all about having loads of different types of sex and kinky sex, etc. It doesn't have to be about that. Again, just talking about my experience, being able to experience, feeling like I'm free enough to experience different types of sex has also been a game changer for me.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I want to name too, like kind of to your first point of those questions and conversations that hadn't been available to you in monogamous relationships. Y'all, if you're listening and you are monogamous, we're not saying that those conversations aren't still available to you, that you have to be non-monogamous to have them. What we're saying is that in the sleepwalking script of monogamy, in the mononormative world, we're not forced in some ways to have those conversations, because there is such a clear script that we just follow. And I think that if more folks in monogamy were to have those kinds of conversations, what do we think about this? What do we want to do about that? What do we want to consciously create? How do we want this piece of our life to look? How do we get there? Where are we different, and what do we want to do about it? And we bring consciousness and choice in writing our own script, even in our monogamous relationships. Like, this is a lesson we could take from the non-monogamy and the queer world, because when you step outside of the box of dominant ways of living and loving, you kind of have to ask those questions, because the script isn't clear. We don't have a lot of really clear models, and just trying to replicate the cis het mononormative model doesn't fucking work for us. But also the cis het mononormative model doesn't work for a lot of cis het mononormative couples. They're unhappy. They're feel stuck. Divorce rates are astronomical, really. And I don't think we're accessing enough of what is possible in our love relationships, in our connected friendships, in our life. But these kinds of questions, this kind of designing your own script that, Ali, that you're bringing into our our conversation here opens the door to that. And that is so life liberating, so life enriching. And I mean, just I imagine a world where all of us are living by a script that is aligned and consciously chosen and consensually negotiated in genuine loving partnership with all people to whom we're in connection. It's really different. It's a really different way of being.
Yeah. I'm not on commission. I'm not recruiting non-monogamous right now. So, do know that I'm not on commission for the non-monogamist world.
Yeah.
When we think about love, one of the ways that I like to think about love is, how can I lift you up? How can I help you have your joy? And so if that's me, and I'm thinking about my relationships, my family, my friendships, my job, my hobbies, all of the parts of me where I've got big beacons of joy and light, and my partner or partners are wanting to support me around that, that's love. And that could be having a conversation about non-monogamy, or changing jobs, or moving to a different country, or taking up a new hobby, or starting a family, or any of those conversations we can apply to this view of love being lifting.
Yeah, I love that. I like to think about and define love as the willingness to consciously respond for the highest good and spiritual growth of all involved, even when it's hard or challenging, and even if you don't want to. And I think this idea of lifting one another up is a really big part of it. Is because sometimes the lifting is lifting them into their greatest level of joy, and sometimes like the path to getting there means going through a scary thing, like moving to another country or opening up a relationship. And like, again, it comes back to those questions, like what conversations are available to me, and being willing and courageous enough sometimes to have them. This is such a great conversation, Ali. I've one last question before we wrap up, and it is this. If you could leave our audience with one message, one thing you want them to hear or remember or take away from being here and listening to this, what would it be?
What's the first thing you're going to do to achieve the thing that is drawing you forwards in your life?
I love that. What is the first thing you're going to do to achieve the thing that's drawing you forward in your life? Move into movement. Yeah. Beautiful. I love that. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful for this conversation. There's so many permission slips, so many ahas and liberating like moments of opportunity that you have brought to the table. This path of writing our own scripts, it really does open the door for I think the highest and most joyful level of alignment and love and connection and satisfaction in our lives in all respects. And so thank you for having this conversation, for me, for giving people permission to create a love style that fits who they are and what they want to experience, and for sharing who you are and parts of your journey as an example of what that gets to look like, no matter how late we start or how many relationships or divorces we might go through before we get there. Those are not failures, as you said. They've come to completion, and they bring us into our next chapters.
Exactly. We're always getting there. Every day is a getting there day.
Yes. We're never behind. We're always right where we're meant to be.
I could have chatted for ages, so thank you so much.
I know. This is so great.
Yeah.
I love it.
Brilliant.
Okay, so before I move you backstage, how can people find you? How can they work with you? Is there anything else you want to leave with our listeners in terms of resources or what you have to offer?
Most of my information is on my website, which is alihendry.co.uk. I am based in the UK, so we've got the .co.uk. You can also find me on LinkedIn, Ali Hendry on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. That's probably the one where I'm most posting bits and bobs. I'm on Instagram as @Ali Hendry Coaching. You can catch me every Thursday at 7 p.m. UK time in the Diva Magazine Relationship Room Instagram Live, where I interview different people, different topics every week. Nice. So if you look at the Diva Magazine profile and you see the little wink circle going around and there's an Instagram Live happening, that will be me every Thursday at 7 o'clock. So I get to meet amazing people every week, authors, therapists, coaches, counselors, psychologists, educators, the whole gamut. So you can find me there, and all the recordings of years. I've been doing the relationship room for 6 years for Diva Magazine. We started on Clubhouse. That's how long ago it was. And then we moved over to Instagram Live. You can find all those recordings on @Diva Magazine or @Ali Hendry Coaching on Instagram, and have a look at a whole range of topics, a lot of topics that we've covered here today as well, actually. And if you're a coach and you're working in an environment, whether that's in a business or as a solo, and you're thinking, I am finding it really hard to have conversations around particular identities, or I'm having quite a few conversations or worries around ethical dilemmas, then I've got you. We've got the ICF Inclusive Coaching Diploma that is for you. Yeah. If you're a coach and you're wanting to specialize in a particular area and you're looking at how can I maximize my niching, I've got you too. We can go into ICF Relationship Coach Diploma, and that is for you. And obviously private clients as well, working with individuals and duos. But if you go to alihendry.co.uk, you can find me there. Or my link tree, which is on Instagram, has got lots of links in it.
Excellent. I will make sure the website and the link tree and and the socials and the Diva Magazine, they are in the show notes so people can find them easily and get a hold of you. Ali, thank you again so much. This has been a fabulous conversation, and I really, really appreciate the work that you're doing in the world and your time in sharing it with us here.
Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed it.
Yes. Excellent. Well, I'm going to move you backstage while I wrap this up. Y'all, wasn't that so good? I mean, so good. And I want to ask you, as I always do, to do me and Ali a favor. If something in this episode hit for you, added value to your life, opened something up for you, can you please subscribe to the Relationship Revolutionary wherever you listen to podcasts, and leave us a review on this episode. Share what resonated with you. Share the episode with one other person who you know may need to hear Ali's words today. Listen, your word of mouth is what gets this conversation into rooms that Ali and I couldn't without you. And that is how this revolution spreads. Now, if you want to help us activate and accelerate the Relationship Revolution global movement even further, make sure to comment, like, and subscribe to all of the work that Powerful Love does across social media, including YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. Share about our work, attend our events, and of course, keep doing your part to lead with love. If you're looking for support for yourself and your relationship, there are a number of ways that Cal and I can support you. I want to take a quick moment to share 2 of them today. The first is a free masterclass that I am doing fairly frequently, because it is part of my mission to reach at least 100 women and queer folks who are desiring to have extraordinary relationships. And the masterclass is called How to Get Your Partner to Finally Show Up the Way You've Been Asking Without Burning Out Trying to Make It Happen. And yes, I know that is a long title, but I believe every word is doing important work. This isn't a webinar. It's not a tip session. It's an identity activation, my friends. Because the problem is never that you don't know what you want. The problem is that you've been trying to get it in a way that's not working for you. And so I'm going to help you see how to be who you need to be and get the results that you're actually looking for in your relationship with a whole lot less effort and energy than you're probably already spending. So the link to that masterclass is in the description. Register for the next one. It is entirely free, and it will change the way that you see your relationship. And if you're already ready, if you know that you want more than a masterclass, you want the real thing, you want support, the Third Path program is open. The Third Path is our entryway to working with us at deeper levels. So whether you do the Third Path, which is a 6-week container on its own, or it becomes your first step to our ongoing relationship mentorship work, this is the starting position to learning how you can stay in your relationship and change everything. You don't have to leave. You don't have to keep spinning your wheels and burning out. You get to be the leader in love and watch your relationship change. And the Third Path is where you learn and get supported step by step in exactly how to do that. For our Two-Spirit LGBTQIAP+ community, in honor of Pride Month and in celebration of who you are and what you are bringing to this world in your love style, in your being, I am I've created an access, easy access price, I suppose, no pun intended, to the Third Path for the month of June. So there's not that much time left, but there's still a few days in June. You can use, when you go to the Third Path link, there's a button that you can press, no check in, no identity verification that you're part of this community. If you identify as part of this community, you can hit the button for the queer and trans 555 discount. Normally the Third Path is $2,222, but for our community, for the month of June, you can get access to the 6-week Third Path program for only $555. That link is in the description as well. You can learn more about that program and how we can support you. That's all I've got for you today, my dear ones. Next week, we enter into July, where we are getting into being alive in love, the serious business of joy. Is going to be a great series. I hope you will join me. New episodes drop every Friday at 12:30 p.m. Pacific. Until then, keep leading with love.